Hi, I'm Xander. This held together experiment feels like it's been flowing through me, or I've been flowing through it or something. And I wanted to give a little behind the scenes of the behind the scenes, because held together is about bringing us into our relationships, and in particular my care web and the care work that is all around me and us. And so this is Beth and Nora and Lunie, and we're kind of behind the making of the podcast in this iteration, and we wanted to just give you a little context.
I'm Beth, and you'll hear more about my story with Xander on the very first full-length episode, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm working a little bit behind the scenes on this podcast, doing some audio editing and getting our podcast out into the world and adding some nice instrumentals and music. So it's fun to listen to.
And I am Nora, and I am going to be someone you'll hear from during every episode as I support and companion Xander and our guests in this journey together to illustrate how someone creates a web of care around themselves. Xander and I connected, it was in April of 2024 at a grief and song workshop. And in that workshop, Xander was supporting Aaron Johnson, who was leading the workshop. And it occurred to me that Xander, as someone supporting someone, could possibly use some support. And that is what I proposed to Xander at the end of the day. Flash forward to this past spring of 2025, when this brilliant idea was popping, and I said, how can I support you? And that is what I'm here to do.
Yeah, I remember Nora was like, I'm watching you doing all of this supporting. Who's supporting you? And I had no idea who this person was. And then I realized that about 4 hours earlier, I was demoing a listening practice and trying to think about how I could be held in this demo in this big circle of people. And Nora just popped up from the circle and said, would you like me to sit back to back with you? And I was like, that's exactly what I want. Because it's kind of hard for me to hold myself up. I have EDS, which is a connective tissue disorder. It felt like a good little metaphor for that feeling of being backed and held. Pretty special to have it happening in this podcast space.
I want to say that it was while you were building your nest, which is also something that feels really relevant in this whole scene.
Oh yeah, I was building a nest, and I was having a hard time thinking about what I wanted in that moment. And then Nora popped up and made that offer, which was exactly what I wanted.
And when the idea for Held Together came up, the two of us were juggling a bunch of different projects and feeling really low on capacity. But the idea for this podcast felt like it wanted to be in the world. And so we were like, what are we going to do? And you reached out to Nora?
I don't even think I asked Nora about it. I just kind of was telling you about this idea that seemed to have birthed itself. And sometimes things are birthed and then they exist even when there isn't any infrastructure for them. Yeah, I don't think I was asking you for help. I was just kind of telling you about this idea. And then Nora said, do you know that 3 is a much stronger base than 2? And I said,
As a former architect, it's the shape of a really strong truss that you might use for structure, or it's a pretty frequently used, the sort of triangular shape. So more structural integrity for all of us.
And I think that's part of what this podcast, which feels more than a podcast, most of the episodes are live, although that might change. And it doesn't feel like a demonstration of an intact care web. It feels more like an invocation or a prayer for what might become when we put our attention on care webs and the threads of the web that are already robust and intact and the ones that aren't, but what can become possible if we put some focus and energy and breathe some life into this idea of building community, of living interdependence in our day-to-day.
I also would love to share that when I approached you, Xander, at the end of that workshop, it was something I was practicing and still am and have for a while, which is courage practice. And I did not have any idea how you would receive it or what you would be open to. Little did I know what a web you already have. It's so amazing to me when we've been sort of forecasting and planning the episodes, the sheer number of people that you have deep connections with that you're wanting to have as guests, and the wide variety of what those connections are based in, and the way you know the people and what it is that you share in common, and that it's mutual support more often than not in multi directions. And so this sort of prismatic thing just keeps on getting more prismatic as we go.
Yeah, and I hope this can be a bit of a smoke signal for anyone who is meant to be in this web that we don't yet know, in this realm. So find me and us if you feel called to be here with us in some way or another.